Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at basically the Darkmoon Faire in 2025, all of the events, rundown of it, and of course whether you should go. This is something I do every year for every event to see what's new, but also to entice players to go. So if you've never been, you should definitely go. Now, getting to the Darkmoon Faire is pretty simple. For Horde players, you need to head to Thunderbluff. You can catch the Zeppelin, which takes a long time, or you can just catch a flight path, which is a lot easier. And then right in front of Thunderbluff by Mulgore, there is the portal. For Alliance players, it's a lot easier. You simply have to teleport to Stormwind, go from Stormwind, and then basically catch a portal outside by Elwyn Forest near Goldshire. Once you've done that, you are pretty much good to go. You can enter the portal and you will be able to head down to the fair by just following the signs along the hill. If you are a player that cannot mount up yet, you can speak to this little vendor and get on one of his little mounts, and that'll give you a speed boost to get down. Now, the main reason for coming to the Darkmoon Faire is to obtain Darkmoon Faire tickets. Every single month when the Darkmoon Faire is up, you can get a total of 278 tickets every single time. That's obviously not including once-off tickets for things like the Silas Secret Stash quest, which we'll talk about later. But every time Darkmoon Faire is up, you can get 278 Darkmoon Faire tickets, and great news, they are transferable between alts. So this is great for players, especially people who partake in the events, but across multiple characters, and maybe have a little bit of tickets here or there. They are now warband transferable, which is awesome. You get 80 for the various dungeon books that you can trade in during the course of the week that the Darkmoon Faire is up. You get 42 if you do every minigame every single day, 17 if you do all your profession quests, 10 for Grizzly Trophies quest, 10 for claiming the item from the Darkmoon Faire World Boss Moonfang, 14 if you do both race quests every single day, there's 2. And then 100, that makes 173, and then 105 can be obtained by completing the pet quests each day, but these are per account, so you can't go on each elt and do them. So you can get 173 per character, but 105 is account based. So technically speaking, it's 278 if you just do it on one, but I mean if you do it on multiple characters, you can get hundreds of tickets, just depending on how hard you want to grind the Darkmoon Faire. The Darkmoon Faire will only give you tickets, items, and pretty much everything else you need if you have a Darkmoon Faire Adventurer's Guide. This can be obtained from Selena, who is literally right at the entrance to Darkmoon Faire, or if you took a quest, an intro quest, from one of the mystics in the main cities, then that will also obviously give you the guidebook. Now, before you begin on the first part, which is minigames, you'll have to buy minigame tickets or tokens to participate in them. Just buy a whole bunch. You use these pretty much for everything except for some of the rides. So even if you're doing some of the minigames or side things, side events and that, you're going to need a lot of these. So just buy like 100 of them and you should be good to go. You won't have to worry about them for a while. There are quite a few different little minigame quests. There are 6 per day. There's the Hammer Time quest, the Humanoid Cannonball, He Shoots, He Scores, Target Turtle, Tongue Commander, and then Firebirds Challenge. The Firebirds Challenge one is probably the one players are most interested in, as with Firebirds Challenge, if you complete the achievement Brood of Alcazar, which makes you collect 50 rings in one flight, you'll get the Blazing Wings toy, which is pretty cool. You get to wear some really cool blazing wings. The rest of them don't give you too much, honestly. Some give you toys and that if you get their achievements, but I'd say the Firebirds Challenge is probably the only one that's really that cool. One of the main draw cards to the Darkmoon Faire is definitely the profession quests. These have taken on an added significance since the Dragonflight expansion, as they now drop knowledge for your main profession quest. So they're one of the regular ways for players to obtain a little bit of extra knowledge. It's only 3 per quest, but it does count and makes the profession quests quite important. So it also gives you skill up, which can be important for a lot of these, as skill obviously is very important to crafting, but it's the knowledge that's very big. because if you're a hardcore crafter, that extra 3 knowledge per month, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's an extra 30 per year. Expansions are up, like 2.5 years. So I mean, it's a lot. It adds up to like 80 or so knowledge, which is quite important. The pet battles can be found obviously in the pet arena, just flashed it on the map. The pet battles, there are 2 of them, Jeremy Fiesel and Christoph von Fiesel. Both are very challenging. They both have level 25 pets. I recently beat Jeremy for a challenge for another achievement in World of Warcraft, so it's definitely very tough. Both of the packs have a chance to, well, firstly drop 5 and 10 Darkmoon Faire tickets respectively each day, which is a lot, but also have a chance at dropping very cool little pets, which is really nice. The next is the Darkmoon Faire races. These can be found near the pier. You will have to do the introductory quest, but after you finish them, you'll receive 2 quests, the race and the real race. And these are 2 daily quests that you can complete to obtain 1 Darkmoon Faire ticket from each. There are quite a few challenges related to the Darkmoon Faire races, and they're actually kind of like a mix of Mario Kart and that, but I don't think they hit their full potential that they really wanted them to. So for me, I don't find them to be as super enjoyable as maybe they should have been, which I think is a little bit of a shame. There are a ton of achievements related to them. Most of them are just for achievement points, but there is a toy that you can obtain if you complete all of them. I think it's a toy, or it's a title. I think it's actually just the title that you get. No, it's a toy. Yeah, so you do get a toy, which is cool, but I think they have a missed opportunity to give you some kind of mount here, but it is what it is. The next daily activity that you can do is the Darkmoon Faire dance game. This activity is relatively okay. It's kind of like a super simple event, to be honest, and you can do it quite regularly. There are also some additional rewards that you can get. Like I said, some toys and that by completing the achievements based on the difficulties and everything. But honestly, the event itself is just really fun and innovative for World of Warcraft. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, and it is quite fun. It's just basically a memorizing pattern game, but you can get Darkmoon Faire tickets and, of course, as well, a whole bunch of other prizes, which is always cool, and work towards a toy. The Blight Ball concert can be found near this little cave over here, near this little cave, and basically it's an event that occurs every couple of hours, and you can achieve take it on with any character. It's a daily drop where you face a rare or mini boss, and the big draw card here is Necromedes, the death guitar. Basically, it is a heavy metal guitar that you can drop from this boss, along with some other interesting transmog. It's definitely well worth trying out. Then we have Grizzly Trophies. This is just a side quest that can be taken every single week or every single Darkmoon Faire, and you should easily complete this if you just run dungeons and do content, and it's just the easy free 10 tickets per ult basically. So yeah, there's just that. Then you get the Deathmatch Pavilion. This one's super interesting. Basically, every 3 hours you can enter a deathmatch. Now, should you win the deathmatch, you will get a special trophy. If you win 12 of them, you get a really cool piece of transmog. But if you come back and win again, you actually will get a cool heirloom item, which is really cool. It's a ring. Then you get Darkmoon Faire fishing. This is pretty simple, but there's a whole bunch of vendors by the pier for Darkmoon Faire fishing. And not only is there an incredibly easy aquatic mount to get there, you can see the skate. It's about 500 Darkmoon Faire more, which by the way are very easy to get. But you can also take the Faded Treasure Map, which is a once per character 100 Darkmoon Faire tickets. So basically if you're looking to grab a whole bunch of tickets, you can grab that map as well. So not only are there pets and transmogs and really cool bonus tickets, but getting these Darkmoon Daggermaw are very easy. You just have to sit there and fish. It's a great way to also raise your fishing skill, by the way, so feel free to fish it up a storm. It's honestly probably one of the easiest ways to grab an aquatic mount, but it's also a very easy way to grab yourself a bunch of great rewards, including the tickets as well. So highly suggest that you partake and get involved in that. I think it's really worth it. There's a ton of cool stuff, and it's probably the most simple thing to do. Watch some anime, sit and fish. That's really all you got to do. So before we talk about the vendors, the last kind of major thing is the Darkmoon Despoiler. It's an achievement, but they're the books that you can collect each and every single time. And realistically, they're just a great way to get yourself a bunch of tickets. Now, the Adventurer's Guide is obviously something you need to achieve these, but the PvP books drop from the Battlegrounds. This is the Fallen Adventurer's Journal, Banner of the Fallen, Captured Insignia. Then you can get Soothsayer Runes from the first loot boss of Raid, so the first boss in any raid, and then the rest will just drop from dungeons. So basically, the rest all drop from various dungeon bosses, whether it's time walking, whether it's current content, whatever it is, as long as it's relevant, chances are you'll probably get a Darkmoon Faire drop from those bosses at some point. Most times time walking feels like it's one of the better ways to get these, but it is just one of those things. So yeah, these are just easy to get, basically do content across the board, but there are 3 from PvP and 1 from raids, and the rest all pretty much drop from dungeons. So let's talk about the world bosses. So there are 2 world bosses. There is Moonfang, who you will find in the forest. It'll be like kind of a area-wide announcement. The forest is basically amongst these trees to the left of your map, and the Darkmoon Faire rabbit, which you'll find by this little cave along the coastline. Both have like a area-wide announcement, and both don't do much. They can drop you some decent adventurer level gear, but mainly the big thing is getting pets. There's a couple pets from either of them, and as previously mentioned, Moonfang will drop Moonfang's pelt, which you can trade in for 10 Darkmoon Faire tickets each time. So there is an incentive to doing them. If you're a pet collector mainly, there's a little bit of transmog from each. I know the Darkmoon Faire rabbit pet sells for quite a bit, but yeah, that's really about it. Now, the vendors are obviously quite numerous. Each vendor, there's tons of them. One of the main ones is the mount vendor, with obviously 3 mounts and quite a few different little pets that you can obtain, which I think a lot of players are obviously super duper excited on. Then you have, your pretty standard heirloom vendor. This is kind of standard for a lot of events now, but there's a lot of great heirloom you can get, and considering how quickly you can get Darkmoon Faire tickets, you can upgrade heirloom quite easily through the Darkmoon Faire. It's probably one of the main incentives. Right next to that vendor, you'll find the replica armor vendor, which is obviously great as well if you're someone who's into some of the older kind of replica based armors, like the spellcaster set, which is obviously great. I think these are season 1 and 2 PvP rewards, so for a lot of players they're quite cool nostalgic items that players can get. There's a toy vendor really right next door to that. There's not a lot here, obviously just a bunch of toys and transmog items and things like that. But one of the main things here is the Darkmoon top hat, which you can buy, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in more detail, but it's definitely a huge incentive. Then there is a tincture vendor. They will sell potions. There's also numerous food and drink vendors that obviously you can buy food and drink from and eat to complete achievements, but nothing too major there. If you have the Scarlet Crusade tabard by completing their reputation, there's a Scarlet Quartermaster near the zoo by the pier, and going to her will allow you to buy 3 different ensemble sets for about 50,000 gold, but still, it's really cool. A Scarlet Crusade mail and plated set, so very, very nice. Yeah, obviously that's only if you have the tabard, which you have to obviously get by being at a high ranking with the Scarlet Crusade. Then we have another secret vendor called Chester. Chester sells 2 really cool toys, but he also sells Gilneas based transmog, which is great if you're someone that's looking to cosplay as a person from Gilneas. Now, one of the major components of the Darkmoon Faire is the EXP and reputational buffs. Now, as mentioned before, you can come to Galvus, the vendor, and buy yourself Darkmoon top hats, which are great if you're looking to speed level later on when the Darkmoon Faire is not up, because you can use it to get the Darkmoon Faire's buff even when it's not available. It's a great way to level out, so I highly suggest buying a couple. one of the main ways to get your buff is you can get a 1 hour long EXP and reputational buff of 10% by both riding on the carousel that is in the area, or the toy carousels that you get from your potential Darkmoon Faire toy prize boxes, or you can ride the roller coaster, which is also there. So they both give you the same buff. Riding will refresh the buff, so it's highly advisable that you come back here, especially if you're using it to level. It's really helpful for leveling, rep grinds, etc. And because the Darkmoon Faire is so easy and accessible to get to, you can pretty much keep this buff live, especially if you use Darkmoon top hats. It's just really not that hard to kind of keep it going the whole time. Then there is a special NPC called Sage. You can find him obviously at the location on the map. Answering his questions will give you a variety of buffs ranging from damage buffs, stat buffs, stamina buffs, versatility buffs, secondary stat buffs, etc, etc. These disappear when you enter a dungeon, but they are cool for leveling, especially if you're like a class that struggles with leveling or a new player or anything. They last for 2 hours as well, so they're just helpful for that open world events and leveling. And if you're going there to get your EXP buff, you might as well get the stat buff. There are other events. These are more just kind of for fun. The Elder Elite Tauren will hold a concert every couple of hours, and there is the zoo that you can kind of walk through by the pier, which I guess is just a lot of fun. I mean, I like to do these things with friends. It's always just cool to do. There's also the arcade game console, which allows you to play a whole bunch of mini games from world quests, which a lot of players don't really do. But I mean, hey, there's like memory games, Hex Sweeper. I mean, basically they're just the world quest mini games, but I mean, it's a lot of fun if you really want to try them out. There's no real achievements or anything related to them, so it's not anything too major. So yeah, that kind of covers the Darkmoon Faire. Why should you go? Well, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's heirloom that's very easy to obtain. There's EXP buffs that are easy to obtain. There's an easy to obtain aquatic mount that requires you to only fish for a little bit. And there's even, a whole bunch of stat buffs that you can get as well. For me, your priority should just be basically soft grinding to heirloom gear if you want to. I think that's a huge incentive. There are also some really cool pets and toys and mounts that you can get if you want to. But I think ultimately for me, the fishing, getting your fishing up, getting your professions up, getting the profession knowledge, and just basically having a little bit of fun with friends is a huge incentive towards going. I think the profession quests are probably mandated to go if you're a hardcore crafter, and I think obviously the heirloom is a huge incentive as well. But that's pretty much it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you did, and let me know what you think of the Darkmoon Faire going into 2025 and what changes you'd like to make. Bye.